do, if we can maybe open up with a round of applause and then literally just jump right into the questions. So, Cornel and Eitan Webb. So the way we want to start off is we'll just hear a couple of opening remarks. You guys kind of get into it, and then we'll probably just jump right into questions, like 5, 10 questions. I'll write them down, and then we'll just shoot it. Work for you.
Sounds good to me. Let me first say I'm blessed to be here before through our conversation. Thank you so very much for the Bishop for those very kind and generous words. This is the second time I've had a chance to be in dialogue with my dear brother, Rabbi Webb. He was kind enough to invite me to his house. I was blessed to invite him here with knowledge as well. We had a wonderful time there around the table. We must have stayed for about an hour and a half, or maybe 2 hours or so. And then we thought to ourselves, it would be nice to take this problem. I said, I would be delighted to be in public conversation with my dear brothers, primarily because for me, I am fundamentally concerned about the rich gifts of East European Jewry to the New World, and specifically the United States. And for me, Hasidism is one of the great gifts. One of my greatest heroes, Rabbi who is not just a model, but he is a soulmate of mine. And his text of prophets right next to my bed. When I wake up, I look and see both a picture of Heschel as well as that text. Why? Because both are the Christian and as a deep Democrat, fundamentally committed to not just love of wisdom, but love of justice. For me, Hasidism and the prophetic Judaic tradition is a grand, not just a grand tradition, but for me, Judaism was a moral revolution in the human species to the degree to which Hebrew scripture provided a conception of what it means to be human, in which there's loving kindness, hesed to the orphan, the widow, the fatherless, the motherless, the poor. Those 36 references to love a stranger in Hebrew scripture. And that one reference of Leviticus 19:18, love thy neighbor as thyself. And of course, as a Christian, there's a particular Jew named Jesus, who means much to me, who comes out of the prophetic Judaic tradition. And so my own understanding of myself as a Christian flows out of this prophetic Judaic tradition. And when I began to read the great Hasidic figures of Buber and Heschel, and now reading Schneerson, I said to myself, it would be wonderful to be in a context where I can learn and listen from a fellow human being, a fellow Jewish brother, a fellow rabbi, but I'm not a rabbi. Brother rabbi, let's put it that way, brother rabbi, who represents so much of this grand tradition that East European Jewry gave to the modern world and the New World, specifically New York City, through the tradition of those connected to about that wisdom, that understanding, that knowledge that means so very much. And so that's what I bring to the table, as it were. And that's why I'm so glad to be at the table.
And I could not agree more. I think that the conversation just began about really is what brought us to this, and hopes that will bring us to many more conversations in the future. But because you raised the subject of Hasidism and the closeness that it has to your heart, I thought that a nice place to start might be with the definition of a Hasid. Yes. And of course, a Hasid could be a guy with a big yarmulke and a beard, but there must be something more than that, something deeper than that, something which says this is a Hasid, this is law. And this is a question that was actually posed by a follower of the fifth Rabbi of Chabad, Rabbi Shalom Ber Schneerson. Close to him, by one of his disciples. The disciple came into him and said, "What is a Hasid?" And the Rabbi thought for a moment that a Hasid is a lamplighter. Back before we had electricity, and even before we had gas lighting, there would be a person or persons who would go around the city every evening, and they would light the lamps on the lamp posts, and that's how the city would have light at night. And they would go and exchange the lamps as they would be extinguished. And this was what the Rabbi said, that chassid is a lamplighter. And that the job of a chassid is to go and light every lamp. Well, this chassid said, what if the lamp is in the middle of a desert? And the Rebbe said, well, if he's a true lamplighter, then he will go to the desert and light the lamp there as well, up to the point where the desert is ashamed of the light. And this chassid said, what if the lamp is in the middle of the sea? And the Rebbe said, well, if he's a true lamplighter, then he will go there too and light that lamp. And the chassid said, okay, that's a chassid? So the Rebbe thought for a moment that yes, that is a chassid. Then this chassid said, well, I don't see any lamps. And the Rebbe said, that's because you're not a lamplighter. And the chassid said, well, how do I become a lamplighter? He said, with self-sacrifice and true devotion to help you have your individual. And the Rebbe told over the story very early in his leadership. And then he explained the story and said that every person has a soul. And that soul is a flame. It's there, and it can never be extinguished. But the soul can be flaming up, or it can be an ember. And it's the job of the chassid to find that flame within every single individual and to fan it so that it becomes a roaring fire. And so that each person is not only being helped, but each person is inspired to then go and help. That they go and become a lamplighter for the next person. And he said there are times that there are individuals who, on the surface, have nothing going for them. They're really horrible. Just like the desert. It's dry, it's arid. You look, there's nothing you can do there. And the Rabbi said, but if this person truly is a chassid, they will recognize that there too, there is a spark. And there too you can accomplish. And if you're truly, truly committed, you will go there, you will find this person, you will engage them, and you will light that fire as well. And then he said, wisdom, Torah, is compared to water. Because water quenches a person's thirst. And just like physically water quenches a person's thirst, spiritually, wisdom quenches a person's spiritual thirst. And it's possible to have an individual who is filled with water. They're a sea. They are a fountain of wisdom, but their spark is not flame. They have tremendous knowledge, tremendous intellectual power, but they're not activists. They're not doing what they should be doing. They're not helping where they should be helping. And if a person is truly a chassid, they would even go there and try to light that fire. And that's our job. So that's I think, a great place to start, to stop, and to maybe open.